fashionistas, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for this video today because I finally got a new camera. I've been trying to find something better than my iPhone, so I hope that this can allow me to make better eye contact with you guys and to also make better quality videos. So before I start talking to you guys about what it's like in the fashion industries, I want to talk to you guys about my college experience and the path that I chose. I hope this can help you guys navigate through your lives and maybe see what you want to do before heading into college, or if you're already in college, what to do next. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. So before I start talking about my college experience, I just want to lightly touch up on my high school experience. My parents moved me from Manhattan to upstate, so I was in an upstate school. I sat down with my high school counselor and we were talking about what was next for me. I always wanted to go to FIT. That was my dream school at the time, but I didn't have the right credentials to go to that school. So I ended up having to opt out and find something that matched me a little bit better. And he kind of like asked me if I wanted to change my major and to start looking into something else, and I told him no, I don't want to do that. Like, I definitely want to go to a fashion school. So we were looking into more like fashion ideas because I wanted to do fashion design, and since that was no longer on the table, we were trying to find out what else was there. So we found fashion business, and we thought this was like the right choice because you didn't have to have a portfolio of any kind. And one day my high school had a college fair, and I went from table to table to see, you know, what my options were. And sure enough, I found a table for Berkeley College. I ended up talking to one of the people who were there, and him and I had a really great conversation, and he basically told me that I was a good candidate for that school, and so I should definitely apply. I ended up applying, and sure enough, I got in. So I ended up attending Berkeley College for the obvious reasons. They had a major that I wanted, and I ended up going to their school right after graduating high school. So I graduated sometime in June and started their college in like early or late August. And I honestly, from there on out, didn't really take any breaks except for one, because my school was changing from semesterly to quarterly, which was amazing because the lectures were like about 3 to 4 hours long sometimes, or maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. It was like more like 2 to 3 hours long of lectures, and it was a lot to handle at the time. So I was really happy that they were changing it. But during that summer that they were changing it, the semester would be longer, and it just didn't seem right to do that since first off, it was summertime, and you know, I was still a teenager, so I wanted that break. It was a lot better too because the breaks were a lot longer. Like, instead of 1 week breaks, we would have 3 week breaks, and that took a lot of like the pressure off, because imagine having to do like midterms and finals and then only have 1 week off of that and then going right back into it. It was just way too much. Freshman year was difficult, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I was still a teenager fresh out of high school, and so it was a lot of change. And I had heard, you know, my high school teachers tell me this before, like, oh, college is gonna be so much harder, and you know, you're not gonna be able to handle the work. And honestly, it had nothing to do with like the workload, because it wasn't like I was doing crazy papers. Like, I wasn't doing like 10-page papers. It was just like not really understanding the process. I didn't know what they were looking for, and I was really big on like doing things on my own, and if I needed help with like editing of a paper, I would just go to like a nearby friend and ask them for help. What I did wrong, which I didn't know at the time, was not attending tutoring, because with tutoring, they really helped. Like, they helped you to understand what these professors were looking for. They even will like help you edit your papers right away instead of, you know, you give it to a friend and, you know, that friend is busy and they kind of just like skim through it and probably not even really care about this paper, and then kind of help you with just like some grammar and kind of miss others. It was the biggest thing that I was missing from freshman year. I ended up getting like around C and D's, and at the time it didn't really matter to me because I'm like, well, who's gonna see it? You know, it's not like after college you go to somewhere else. I mean, you could go to graduate school, but that wasn't my path at the time, so I didn't really care. And soon enough, I did start to care about how low my grades were, and you know, I took this ended up taking this class and I ended up doing really poorly in it. And I was this close to failing that class. And I'm one to, you know, I hate failing anything in life. So after that, it was like a wake-up call to like kind of start getting better grades. And so from there on, I started to improve a little bit more. So I wasn't fortunate enough to have parents that paid for my college. It's not their fault, you know, it's just life sometimes. So therefore I had to pay out of pocket. So I was paying out of pocket, and I was also taking out loans. I was working, my very first job, you know, starting in high school was at Tommy Hilfiger. I worked there for about 8 months, and then ended up leaving shortly after because I was moving on to bigger and better things. And I ended up getting a job as, funny enough, a security guard. So I ended up getting that job because of my older brother, who was basically like, listen, this is a very chill job, like, you know, no one's breathing down your neck, or you don't really have that many like things to do, and it could be like a good opportunity for somebody who's in college, you know, to get their work done. So sure enough, I got my license as a security guard, and I got a job at this place called Securitas. So I worked there throughout my whole freshman year, and it worked out perfectly because I would attend my classes from Monday through Thursdays. I never took Friday classes ever. And then from Friday to Sunday, I worked the graveyard shift as a security guard. Just like this big giant warehouse in the middle of nowhere, and nobody would come in. So it was just like, I wasn't really securing anything. I was just being paid just to sit in this building and watch out and like give people access to certain areas of the building. Sophomore year was a lot harder than freshman year, I'm not gonna lie. My family was selling the house from upstate and moving back to the city, so I had to kind of maneuver things. I had to quit my job at Securitas and kind of find something else to do. From there, I was lucky enough to get a new job at Educational Alliance, which was a program for kids that they would come like from after school, and they would come to us, and we would do like games and stuff like that, and like have little lessons for them, and it was a really good environment. At the time, it was really weird though because I was only 19 and I was caring for high school students. But it was kind of a good thing because I was able to talk with them and kind of understand them more because it wasn't so long that I was in their shoes. So if you don't know this, college makes you do FAFSA every time you do another semester. I was definitely not doing so well with that because I didn't have the right funds to pay for college, and it was really starting to like come at me during sophomore year. So I had to figure out another way to make money because although that my new job was a great job, it only paid it paid $15 an hour, but they only gave you 3 hours to work, so it was not enough, and I would get paid every 2 weeks. I didn't want to keep taking out loans all the time. I was forced to at times, but when I could pay out of pocket, I would. I ended up having to get another job. Decided to work retail again because they hire a whole bunch of people for holiday seasons for the obvious reason. So I ended up applying to Lucky Brand and Victoria's Secret and a whole bunch of other places, and I got the job at Lucky Brand. So Lucky Brand was obviously just a seasonal job, and it was one of the hardest seasonal jobs I've ever had, because retail, like if you've worked retail, you know that this job sucks up all of your energy. And as a full-time college student, it was just a lot to handle, especially like having to do, you know, being a full-time student and then working a part-time job with teenagers and then having to go into another job where it's retail. It was just a lot to handle, you know. If you work retail, kudos to you. Like you got my respect, because honestly, retail is not a fun job to have because of the people who come in and for whatever reason want to talk to others like disrespectfully. Like, I don't know what it is. They treat you like garbage. I didn't really like working at Lucky Brand though, because they were really like forcing me to wear like more colors. And as a college student, if you're a college student, you would know that you are broke. Even though I was working at Lucky Brand, I didn't have money to even buy their clothes, and when I did, it would be like their jeans. And I didn't really want to spend my money on their clothes anyways, because it wasn't really my like aesthetic. And they were getting mad at me because I would keep wearing black, and black was just my color at the time because it was, you know, it was flattering to the body and it was cheap. And of course, as a fashion student, that always killed me, but there was nothing I could do about it. Made this job even worse was that like we only got like a 15-minute break, which really sucked because, you know, it takes sometimes 10 minutes to even heat something up. And I worked in the Soho location, and if you know Soho, there's not a lot of places to eat, especially not like cheap places to eat. So a lot of the time I would have to bring in something from home, and since I'm a college student, a lot of the time that thing was ramen noodle soup. And I would be really upset because it would take a while for it to heat up, and then, you know, it's soup, so you gotta be careful eating it. And, you know, I would like burn my mouth because I'm like rushing and trying to eat this thing as fast as possible. One thing that they hated about me too was that I would constantly clean things in their store. Look at me like I was nuts. Like, you know, like they didn't really want me to start cleaning the place. It was just not the job for me. And after the seasonal thing ended, I never even looked back at that job, honestly. So for the rest of my sophomore year, I did Education Alliance, and that was that. So junior year was not the best year either. Honestly, my whole college years were not very good, especially because I was a struggling student. So when I went back to school for my January semester, my advisors told me, my advisors advised me not to do full-time that year. And I was really like upset about this because I had a plan of when I wanted to graduate school, and like my whole thing was that I wanted to finish by the time I was 21 to kind of prove to myself that I could do it within the 4 years, you know? So I was really upset about this part-time thing because I knew it would kind of slow the process down. Once they showed me the price difference of part-time and full-time, I was forced to do part-time because the difference of that was like $200 versus $1,000. And so I was like, yeah, you know, I'm just gonna do the part-time. So I ended up doing part-time, and at the time I was still working at Alliance. So I was like, I needed to do more, and especially since I had more time on my hands, I needed to find another job. applying to a whole bunch of different spots, and I landed a job at Baked by Melissa. And funny enough, that wasn't my first decision. So I had a friend at the time work at this place called Saban that was like a hand soap spot. She got me an interview with like a manager from a different store. And so I went in for that interview, and the manager was super weird. Like, she was asking me like a whole bunch of questions. Well, that wasn't the weird part because that's part of an interview. But the weirdest part was that she wanted me to act out what it was like to be working there. So she had one of her employees come in, and the employee acted like she was a customer, and I had to act like I worked there and was selling something to that customer. So sure enough, I picked out something random and started to try to sell this to the customer. And I thought I did a pretty solid job for somebody who's not an actress. But I guess the lady didn't feel that way because I didn't end up getting that job. It was like near 59th Street. So I come out of that interview and I look to my left of me, and then it was a really small store, and I saw like the workers wearing these like cute little headbands with like these like t-shirts that said like Baked by Melissa. And so I was looking over there and I was like, wow, that's actually, you know, that's pretty chill. I think this is like a spot that I will be okay with working at. And especially the biggest one was that you have to clean their store. Like, it's part of the job. I'm a college student. I was working for Ad Alliance and I was working for Baked by Melissa. And I ended up doing that for a year, for the rest of my junior year. And it was really great because it wasn't too much. After like that semester had passed by, the part-time semester, I really wanted to do full-time again because, like I said, I had a schedule to maintain, and I was a crazy person. Like, if you were to see my planner, you would see like I was like mapping the whole 4 years out already. Like, I was already jotting down like, all right, I have this day off and that day off because of holidays. And I was like, all right, Saturdays, Sundays, and Fridays could be scratched off because, you know, I never took classes on those days. And I need to finish, but before I turned 21. That was like my biggest thing. So after that quarter had ended, I went in to talk to my counselors again, and I was begging them to do full-time. And they really sincerely did not want me to do full-time. They wanted me to stay part-time. And I kept pleading with them, and it came to a point where I was literally in tears. And the only reason why they didn't want me to attend was because I did not have the money for it. And, you know, I was already back on my payments. I was already on a payment plan that I wasn't doing good on. So they were really hesitant to like put me back in. And at the time, it really felt like I was talking to the damn mafia because it was like 2 counselors. I was crying and pleading and saying like, listen, I'll find the money some way, somehow. And they were kind of just like no. And it took for 2 things to happen. It took for one, both parents to not have like the money. So they tried doing like a parental loan from both of my parents, and both of them got denied, which was great because I didn't want my parents to have to pay for my college through like in that way anyways. Like, I didn't want them to have loans and have to, you know, have interest and all of that stuff because of me. So I was happy that fell through. And then the second thing was they made my mom come in to talk with them. And thankfully, like, she was able to prove like, look, listen, like, this girl, she's doing it on her own. I'm not helping her. And they finally like understood, like, okay, fine. Like said, you know, you have really great grades right now. So, and at the time, like, obviously my grades had improved. So they were like, all right, fine, we'll let you go back as full-time. I just want to add in that, of course, during like some of my college years, my parents would help me in any way they can. Like, my dad would drive me to school, and my mom would help me financially sometimes with little, you know, sometimes whenever she could as well, because, you know, they had things to pay for. All right, so senior year. It was the worst year. It was right there, it was so close. I almost had that degree in my hand, but it was like, so during that year, my parents had finally called it quits on their marriage and filed for divorce. And because of that, we moved from our Brooklyn apartment and moved in with our aunt to her apartment, which was a shoebox of an apartment, you know, and it's not her fault because she didn't know that three members of her family were gonna join her in her apartment. But you know, she did the best that she could, and she really made us comfortable with what was happening during that time, so thank you to her. And yeah, so we were living with like 5 or 6 other members of my family in that small apartment. So it was a lot to handle at the time because, you know, I was a full-time student. It was my last year. The workload got a lot bigger, and it finally started to kick in that, you know, after this I was gonna start a career in fashion. So I really started to panic during this time because of the work experience that I had in the past, and I realized that, you know, I had very little to no experience in fashion, and my school wanted me to do an internship. And the hardest part about doing that internship is that at the time, these internships didn't want to pay. So that was just the biggest thing that, you know, I couldn't do because I had to have a paying job. And anytime I would try to find something that did pay, they wanted experience. And it was funny because, you know, the people who are doing internships are people with no experience, and for whatever reason they wanted experience from unexperienced people. So I didn't get the chance to do an internship, which was hard because I knew that it was like affecting my future. Instead of doing an internship, like, because at the end of the year, like Berkeley College, they make you do a in-person internship, and then if you can't get one, you end up doing one online with like a teacher, and it's kind of like it's like a class. I ended up having to opt out for that. I went to my career advisor and I was panicking with her, and I was telling her like, I don't have any experience, what should I do? Like, she's just kind of like, calm down. And she was really helpful to me because she was like trying to see what I can possibly do. And she found this job for me as a vendor at Macy's. So the name of that company was Delta Galileo. And so when I got that job, it was like perfect because it was like during the summertime. So I was able to kind of leave the kids and then start working that job with them. And I was working with Bake by Melissa. And the best part about being the vendor was that the schedule was super flexible. Like, it was so flexible. Like, I was basically making my own schedule at that point. Like, and you know, I was just graduating, very in disbelief that I was finally done. Like, something was telling me that it wasn't over yet and that life was just gonna get harder from there on out. And honestly, my instincts were correct. The thing that I was truly happy about was that I did get to finish exactly when I told myself I would finish. So I ended up getting my degree at 21, which was a really exciting moment because I actually got it on my birthday. And then the graduation date was set for the summertime in May. Well, you know, not summer, but yeah. It was just a weird moment because it was like I forgot everything that I had done. And I didn't really feel prepared yet for the real world. So just happy to have some of my family there and support me. So that was nice. So after graduating from Berkeley College, I started to look for a job right away. That Macy's job was so flexible. I knew that I could manage a full-time position at a fashion job. So I searched and I searched, and I ran into this job as a showroom assistant at this company called La Florentina. And so I was working there, and at first it was great because my boss had told me that it was gonna be an internship, and then after 3 months it would become a full-time position. So I decided to work there. The interview went great, except the only thing that was really bothering me with this job was just a really negative environment for me personally. Like, I know they probably don't feel that way, but that's just how I felt. So after just 3 months of working there, I decided to quit. My boss, really nice, like it wasn't him, it was just like the women that worked there. And so when I quit, he was like, don't worry, like he understood, and he ended up giving me my Christmas bonus anyways. So he was really a nice person. It's just like the team that he had built was just not the right one for me, at least. So I quit that job. I was right back to square one, afraid and telling myself like I had no experience still in the fashion industries. So I was nervous, and I went back to my school to see if they could help. And at that time I was already a graduate, so their main focus wasn't really on me. Apply everywhere that I could. I felt like having my degree made me feel a little more confident. Even started to apply for things that I knew I couldn't even get. After like a couple of months, I started to kind of give up. Just as I made up that decision, I checked my messages and I got a message from somebody. And at the end of that message, it said, can you please come in for an interview? And I skimmed through it. And then at the end of that message, there was, the print at the end, and it said Condé Nast. If you don't know what Condé Nast is, they're just the bigger company for publications such as Vogue, Teen Vogue, GQ, all of those good ones, all under Anna Wintour. So I was really, being fresh out of college, this was like such a great opportunity for me. And that's where my chapter really begins. So yeah. So these are some tips that I want you to walk away with after watching this video. And the first one is, don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged if you're a college student and you haven't really found your way yet. That's absolutely normal. Been in the right positions just yet. If you feel like other people are ahead of you in any way, because you are you, and so just stick with that. Stick with what you know, and don't fear for the worst. Just keep going, keep pushing forward. Second tip is to look at job descriptions during college or even during high school. See what they're looking for. See how many years of experience you need, if you need a college degree at all to even start. My last and biggest thing is, if you take out a college loan, pay it off as soon as possible, as soon as you can, because it does accumulate as soon as you take it out. So if you take out only $200, they'll start putting in interest as soon as it clears. So I thought, they waited until you were done, like you were completely done with college to start putting in interest, but they start doing it as soon as you take it out. So if you are taking out money and you want to start paying it off, ask somebody how can you access it, because you're taking out loans from different companies. So ask which ones you're taking it out from and start paying it off as soon as possible. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys find some type of value to this video. Stay tuned for some of my next videos, because I will start talking about how I was able to get a job at Condé Nast and what it takes to work there. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment below what your experience was during college and if this was helpful to you at all. So Thank you, and until next time, bye. Bye.